Okay.
So it will start with mid-tuning AUG. It will find out the
Hmm.
first base,
Hmm.
and then from that it will code until the stop codon is print out.
Now, I have provided you one nucleotide sequence. I want a amino acid sequence from there.
So there will be 6 different
Six
frames
frames.
and 6 type of molecule will get.
Okay, there are different type of translation software. Okay, so you can get easily, and the most easy is the when you are doing the NCBI search, when you are putting the any molecule like groundnut bud necrosis virus, for example I have taken. So you will get at the below, you will get a translation protein file or amino acid file, okay, for each of the coding region. So by that way you are getting the amino acid sequence. But difficulty is now this is called the bioinformatics or in silico analysis, because from a nucleotide sequence directly you are getting a protein sequence or amino acid sequence. Okay. So you need not to worry about how the biological process is going on within the cell. So without knowing or without much interpreting the biological process of the protein production, we are getting the protein sequence or amino acid sequence from a nucleotide sequence. So this is the beauty of the in silico analysis. Now, what is the biological process of the protein synthesis? All of you are aware? Somebody has covered? No? So, just in brief, so the DNA basically confines within the nucleus. They are never comes or never leaves from the nucleus, and the protein synthesis happens in the where? In the cytoplasm. So something has to come from the nucleus to cytoplasm to complete the protein production. So this phase is known by the transcription. Okay, and a mRNA has been formed to complete the transcription process. What are the process of transcription? The first stage is the initiation, which is done by the RNA polymerase that docks on the codon region, start codon region, and or promoter region, okay, and there is a elongation of that downstream unwinding the DNA that is splitting the double helix structure of the DNA, and based on that single stranded the ribonucleotide bases are gradually added up ACGU, okay, and there is a termination. When there is terminated, when and terminates after the termination, that is released from the DNA, and this mRNA formed by this transcription process is coming to the cytosol. Okay. So after the termination, there are certain other steps like addition of the 5' capping, sometimes the poly A tail. So this function, the addition of 5' capping that protect the mRNA from degradation, and also that helps the mRNA to leave the nucleus and coming to the cytoplasm, and also that anchor the mRNA to the ribosome during the process of translation. So by this process a long range of RNA has been formed, quite a big length of RNA is formed, and within that RNA there are several non-expressed portions which are known as the intron, and the expressed portion are known as the exon. So during the process, that is enzyme chop the introns that is coming out, and the exons are held together, okay, and form the RNA. Now next stage is the translation. In this translation process, the mRNA is directed to the ribosome in the cytoplasm, okay. And the initiation phase, the ribosome attached to the mRNA molecule at the start codon, okay, this one. And the start codon acts as a signal, and here comes the tRNA, transfer RNA, that acts as a courier, and they are specific to different amino acids. They are available in different combinations of codons, around 64 codons, and each codon or each tRNA is carrying one specific amino acid. When they are coming to the amino acid, I tried to describe by this picture. So they are carrying with amino acids and matching with the position of the codon and mRNA, and they are leaving the amino acid, and when they are leaving the amino acid, their bonding is broken and there is a peptide bond between the amino acid as formed. Once the purpose of the tRNA or delivery of the amino acid is completed, it comes to the cytoplasm to pick up another amino acid. Okay, there is a short video to understand in a good way. I don't know whether that will run or not. And ultimately, the process terminated at the stop codon. You are telling there are different codons, start codon, stop codon. So the process is terminated at the when the stop codon is coming. So now you got the amino acid sequence, okay, for a specific protein. So this I was talking about. These are different amino acid residues, and these from the nucleotide sequence, this type of amino acid you will get. Now, this type of amino acid are not exactly forming the protein. So after the synthesis of these peptides, there are different post-transcriptional modification. So what, and this modification is necessary to have a stable structure. There are different type of modification. Most common are the methylation, phosphorylation, and glycosylation. Okay. So these are important to give the protein a mature one with a stable structure. Unless there is a stable and mature structure, the protein cannot interact or perform its biological function. Okay. So now coming to the protein structure. So this structure means a three-dimensional structure, and this structure is formed by the repeated folding of the protein peptide sequence or peptide polypeptide, and there are several hydrogen bond ionic interaction. They bind together by van der Waals process and few hydrophobic packing. So to understand the function of the protein at molecular level, this is very necessary to determine the 3D structure of a protein. And these structures sometimes are reversible, and there are in between few structure are changing. So these are known as isomer, or sometimes they are referred as conformational conformations, and the in between structure are known as conformational changes. Okay. So you have A and B, you may have a in between A and B when the protein is gradually changing to the next structure. So those are the conformational changes. So now, like DNA also, that's why I described the DNA. So this is the amino acid sequence. Okay. So this is known as the primary structure, and at there are two terminus. The first one we start with always with the N terminus. This side, left side, we always, when we are writing, we always start with this side. This is called at the N terminus, where there is a amino group is there, and the other terminus is the carboxyl terminus. We refer a C terminus. Okay. And this is the secondary structure of protein. So basically there are two type of secondary structure in protein. One is the alpha helix and another is the beta sheet. And the first one is the tertiary structure, that is the three-dimensional structure. So in the tertiary structure, the alpha helix and beta sheets, they folded in a compact globular structure, and they held together by defined ionic bonds like hydrogen bond, disulfide bond, and sometimes van der Waals forces. So they form a 3D structure. So that is the tertiary structure. Then in protein, sometimes we refer as quaternary structure. What is the quaternary structure? When this type of unit, that unit means tertiary structure, different tertiary structure held together by same type of bonding, they form a complex type of structure. So I refer this 1 monomer, 2 monomer, 3 monomer. Okay, they held together by some bonding, and this is known as the tertiary structure. Now the question is that how do you get this structure? Okay, before coming to that, there are different structural domain. What is domain? So structural domain are a portion of the protein or peptide which is self-stabilizing and often folds independently. Okay? So they are very much important in terms of genetic engineering because you can pick up that protein domain from one organism and can put that in a different organism to perform the same type of action. Okay, so these are known as the protein domain. There are motifs. Motifs of very often we used in our language that this motif is working, that motif is not working. So motif means a very small sequence which are unique or which are common in a number of protein. That is known as the motif. And there are different protein folds like helix bundle, beta barrel, Roseman fold, and super domain. Super domain we termed when more than one domain, more than one defined domain are held together. Those are known as the super domain. So these are all part of a protein structure. This is not working. Now how to get the protein structure? So that is the first is the X-ray crystallography. That is the most common way, and whatever PDB, you know PDB? Okay, so whatever protein is available in our world or described so far are like NCBI directory that is referred in the PDB. Okay. So in the PDB, 90% of the protein are generated from X-ray crystallography. The next common way is the nuclear magnetic resonance, what we call NMR. Okay, so rest of the portion, so you can say 90% by X-ray crystallography and 9% by the NMR, and very few, that is less than 1%, is by the other method. So what are the other methods? So one of the new method is the cryo-electron microscopy. So this is one of the innovative area where people are working to generate the protein structure through cryo-electron microscopy. And there are some other other process like circular dichroism, then vibrational spectroscopy, two-dimensional infrared spectroscopy, and another recent one is the, we say, fast PP. Okay, so this is another innovative technique where when you are doing a protein, you need not to purify the protein. You can directly go for the protein structuring or protein imaging. So now question is that all these are you need a high-end equipment, and sometimes purifying the protein or isolating the protein is very much difficult, and that time helps the in silico analysis. So in silico analysis is basically a computational process where you can prepare a protein based on the their relative homology with the other described protein. So in the computational analysis of the protein structure, so we will go only for computational analysis when the other methods are not available or not feasible for a specific type of protein. So this computational prediction of protein structure, so there are two types, or we can say three types. So first one is the ab initio modeling, and the second is the threading, and the third is the homology. So threading and homology is more or less in between, more or less same type of thing. So we can differentiate them ab initio and threading and homology modeling. So first I am coming to the ab initio modeling. So ab initio modeling we will do when we don't have any reference protein structure. Okay, we don't know, or for a poorly described protein we should go for ab initio modeling. So ab initio modeling in most of the cases is not correct. There is very less probability of getting a correct protein structure, and there are different software or algorithm which are used for the ab initio modeling. So these Rosetta, Touchstone and iTesser, these are the softwares which are available for ab initio modeling, and all this software is based on the Monte Carlo algorithm. Okay, but I prefer iTesser always because this is very easy and that does not consume your space of the CPU, computer CPU. So in iTesser, basically iTesser model is the hierarchical protein structure modeling, where they use a profile threading alignment, and thereby thereafter they do a threading assembly refinement. From there the name the tracer came. So this is the workflow of the iTracer program, and I want to actually this all you need is a high speed internet to show this one. So in this is the view of the iTracer. Okay, so this is the web browser. You have to put your sequence here, and you have to submit it. And what you need a authorized IP address from your institute. If you don't have any institute IP address, they will not give you access. Okay, so that is the limitation of the iTracer. So that is basically Zhang Lab from the Michigan University, they are hosting. So once you submit the sequence, after you have to wait for few days, and they will send you in email, they will send you best 5 models for your amino acid sequence. So this type of output you will get from iTracer. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 models they have provided. Now in the ab initio modeling, you need to study a lot and need to search a lot about the probable biology and structure of your protein, because the iTracer, they are giving you a blind model, but it is up to you which model you want to select and on what basis. Why you are selecting, you have to be very clear. So this is the model I am showing you. This is basically a groundnut bird necrosis virus glycoprotein model, GN model. This is I am showing. So out of these 5, it's not like that the first one you have select. We have selected this 4th one. So that you have to do some analysis, and you have to work on your brain that which model is suitable and for why you are choosing that model. So then comes the homology modeling. Homology modeling is quite easy, and there are several softwares. I think there are more than 50 softwares are available which helps you in homology modeling. Among these, we use Swiss model 1 and another modeler currently we are using, that is a free software modeler we are using, and quite good to give the output. But the difficulties of modeler is that, okay, I will come to that. This is the workflow in homology modeling. So in homology modeling, from the name you can understand, in homology modeling means you have a target sequence, then you have to identify a reference sequence. Okay, you have to translate it and you have to identify a reference sequence. Reference in means in based on the sequence similarity and also based on the structural similarity. So the program will help you to build a model that is similar to your reference model. Okay, so suppose you have a glycoprotein of GBNB. So in GBNB glycoprotein, you are not getting any other virus glycoprotein, but there is somewhere in the Bunia viruses which are infecting animal, they have a similar type of protein structure which has been built by X-ray chromatography or NMR. Okay, so that structure is quite reliable. So you select this structure, my structure should be look like this, or my structure by sequence and by structure is similar to this protein. So you have to select that protein, and the software will give you one output based on your sequence and your reference structure. Now the next step is this is the crucial step. After building the model, then that is the refinement of model. There may not be all the similar between your reference structure and target structure. So that you have to gradually mechanically manually you have to identify, and you have to do some refinement. So there are several type of refinements like loop refinement. There are several algorithm also to do the refinement of the model. So one of the algorithm is the molecular dynamics model that actually helps us to refine the model. And there are several factors like Rampage and POSA analysis you have to do to see the stability of your structure and the energy level of your structure. So for better understanding, I am giving one example of the study recently we have done, that is the interaction between the groundnut glycoprotein, groundnut necrosis virus glycoprotein with its insect vector Thieves palmi. So this is the amino acid sequence we consider for groundnut bird necrosis protein, and this is the only part of the sequence that reflects the glycoprotein. So better we said glycoprotein precursor, not the glycoprotein. Why? Because I said in the post-transcriptional modification there are several modifications. So the protein is synthesized as a precursor protein, and then the protein is clipped and matured in two defined protein. One is GN and another is GC. GN means the N terminal of the glycoprotein is separated from the C terminal of the glycoprotein, and that is known as GN, then other part is known as the GC. Okay. So we are referring it's a precursor glycoprotein sequence. So now precursor glycoprotein sequence, if you are doing the modeling, it will not work or you will not get a good model. Okay, what is the reason? Because the signal peptide. In most of the cases, viral protein, newly synthesized viral protein, there is a signal peptide. So what is signal peptide? So signal peptide is a short peptide, basically 15 to 30 amino acid length, and that mostly located in the N terminus of the protein. And the purpose of the signal peptide is to translocate the protein to the membrane. Okay. Then this is the pathway of the signal peptide. Here is the protein and there is the signal peptide you can see. So in the signal peptide is clipped here and it's coming out, and the mature protein is coming to the membrane. Okay. But now the question is how to clip and what is the fate of this clip, that is also a peptide, the small signal peptide, what is the fate of the signal peptide. So this is what are the mechanism known so far. This is clipped by signal peptidase, one enzyme, and that enzyme vary with the its reaction with from one organism to another organism. So signal peptidase clip the signal peptide, and there are several signal peptidase which clip into small pieces of this signal peptide. So basically the signal peptide after cleavage it has been chopped out from the cell. Now how to predict the signal peptide? So there are two software, there are not several software, only two softwares are available so far which predict the signal peptide. So the one common software we use, that the Signal P software. There are several versions, the recent version is 5.0. So very easy to use. You have to put the sequence here, the place given below, and submit the sequence. Once you submit the sequence, you will get this type of output, this type of pictorial output. So the red means the C score, A score and Y score, and this is the cutoff value. So cutoff value is the 0.5, this purple line. Okay. So where the A score is crossing the cutoff value, that portion or that position, amino acid position, we will consider as the cleavage site. So you can see there are two peaks that is crossing the threshold. The first peak is coming in between the 24 amino acid sequence of the precursor glycoprotein, and the second clip is coming in between 434. So the first peak 1 to 24, that is the signal peptide. Okay. And as I was saying, from the glycoprotein precursor, the protein is clipped into two mature protein, GN and GC. So first the signal peptide is clipped, and from the second peak, the GN that is separated from the GC. Okay, clear? Difficult. Now another is the glycosylation. So there are two type of glycosylation happening in GBNB glycoprotein sequence. One is N glycosylation, another is O-linked glycosylation. Okay. So first we are showing the N-linked glycosylation. So N-linked glycosylation is the attachment of an oligosaccharide to the nitrogen atom of the protein. Okay, that is the N-linked glycosylation. Why this is important? Because this is important because this gives the structural stability to the protein. Okay, and also that helps to perform its biological function. So it's very understand when you are doing the protein-protein docking, you have to understand why and where the N-linked glycosylation is happening. And how to predict this one? There is one software in NetNGlyc. Okay, so you can use, this is very simple to use. You have to put the sequence and submit the sequence. They will give you one output, and the output looks like this one. Okay, so here is the cutoff value is 0.5, and any peak that is crossing the 0.5 is the site for N-linked glycosylation. So based on that, we identified there are amino acid at 291 position, 546 position, 927 and 1098 position. There is a site for N-linked glycosylation. Okay, so now comes to the O-linked glycosylation. So in the O-linked glycosylation, that means a attachment of a sugar molecule in the oxygen atom of the protein. Okay, and that basically helps the protein stability and regulating the protein activity. So there is another software we use, that is NetOGlyc version 4.0. So that's a web server the orange arrow signifies the N-linked glycosylation site, and the blue sites are indicating the O-linked glycosylation site. Now another important is the transmembrane domain. This transmembrane domain helps the viral protein to fusion. You know fusion, viral fusion. So when the viral particle is coming to a host cell in the cytoplasm, they are coming as a particle or vesicle. After that, they fuse with the cytosol. So this process is known as fusion. Unless there is fusion, there will be no infection. Okay. So this transmembrane domain actually helps in fusion. So there are several algorithms and software which helps to identify the transmembrane domain. Among this, one is DASH, then HMM-TOF, So we use HMM-TOF, TM-PRED and TM-HMM. These three software we use to predict the transmembrane domain in glycoprotein of GBNB. So these are some of the snapshot of these web servers. This is of TM-PRED and this is of TM-HMM. You have to put your sequence here and submit it, and they will show you the where are the transmembrane domain. This algorithm basically works on the hydrophobic nature of the transmembrane domain, because these transmembrane domains are always hydrophobic. They search for hydrophobic domain and they predict these domains may be the transmembrane unit of the protein. So based on this software, so why I am telling always that the in silico analysis, computational analysis, this is a prediction only, because you see there are output of three software. So there are three domain which are almost 2 domain by HMM-TOF, not 3, and 4 domain by this software, and there are several domains by TM-PRED. Okay, so you have to always go for civil software to verify your target. Okay. So if you are getting 3, that is common. We are telling these 3 are transmembrane domain, and there are several transmembrane domain predicted at these sites. Probably these are small transmembrane domain present in the GC part of the glycoprotein. So as we are getting more transmembrane domain in the GC part, we can predict that GC is responsible for the viral fusion in the host cell. Okay. And more transmembrane domain means indicates there are more conformational changes of the protein structure. If there in any protein, if you get more than one transmembrane domain, that means it is very frequently it is changing its conformation. Okay. In that type of protein, it is very difficult to have a base structure because you don't know in which form it is present or in which form it is interacting with the other protein. Now come to the protein-protein docking. After doing that, you can completing all these steps, you can progress for protein-protein docking, move forward. So there are several hundreds of softwares are available by this date for protein-protein docking. That basically some software are paid software, some are based on web servers, some are language based, some are command based. Okay, so that is, and there are different speciality of several softwares are there. So we use for our purpose PatchDock, the most basic software, that is the PatchDock we use for protein-protein docking. So there is one Galaxy that is very advanced one. If you have, you can use this Galaxy PepDock. So this is the workflow in the protein-protein docking. So docking means the interaction. You are interacting. So now you know the structure of both the protein. Okay. So for interaction, you should have at least 2 protein. Okay. So in both the protein, you need to know the structure, actual structure of the protein. So in the structure, they interact like group by bonding, by hydrophobic nature, by van der Waals forces, they interact, or by salt bridges sometimes they interact each other. So there is a protein A and protein B like this one. Then you have to prepare the system and you have to run the docking software, and you will get a docking model also, and based on that docking model you have to score them, and based on your score there are like modeling also. In docking you will get several types of docking, and you have to identify which docking you are accepting. Okay. So that means the scoring. You have to score and you have to see whether your docking is stable or not. Okay. And how potent is the interaction. So now coming to the case study. So in the GBNB glycoprotein I was telling, so we know the which portion is the GN of the glycoprotein, and based on the GN, so we did a ab initio modeling of glycoprotein GN. Ab initio why? Because in the Bunia viruses, the glycoprotein is poorly studied among the, not only in the Tosphoviridae family, among the Bunia virales order also, that is least studied. So there is no NMR or X-ray crystallography structure, and not only that, in other protein also there is no similarity with this glycoprotein. Okay. So we went for ab initio modeling. In ab initio modeling, I was telling you, so you have to judge the which model you have to take, that you have to judge whether there is several uncoiled portion is there. This is, we cannot say this is a very good model, but as I was telling, there are several glycosylation site and transmembrane domain present in the glycoprotein, that is very difficult to have a stable structure of this glycoprotein. So this is the best structure we've got from the analysis, ab initio modeling, and thereafter we refined it using different softwares. One we used the molecular dynamics software, and these two is the crucial factor. You have to go for PROSA analysis, and another you have to go for rampage analysis. So these two give you the indication of stability of your structure and quality of your structure. So there are C-scores. C-score range is 5 to 5, whereas C-score of higher value signifies as a model with a high confidence. That is the C-score, and yeah, here is the C-score. Then TM score, that means a similarity, random similarity of the model, and RMSD is the root mean square distance, and that actually signifies the distance between two atoms. Now this is the PROSA wave. Once you got the structure, you can upload your structure by choose your file here, this button. You can choose your file and submit it, and they will give you a quality structure. They will give you the Z-score. Okay, and then comes with the Rampage. Where is the output? Rampage, you have to submit your file again here by choose file option, and you have to submit to Rampage, and this is the web server from University of Cambridge, and the output looks like this one. So Rampage actually signifies how many residues are coming in the favored or outlier region. Okay, so let me describe this picture. So basically in the PROSA analysis, there are two types of dots. One is the gray color, another is the dark blue color. Dark blue is basically the NMR protein available so far. So they plotted whatever proteins are available in the PDB in a graph, and this is the position of the protein. So the dark region is the NMR structure protein or protein structure which is generated from NMR study, and this portion, gray portion, is the generated from X-ray study. If your protein is coming in between this picture, that indicates your protein is more or less available in the nature or have little bit of similarity. If it is coming in between, then it is very strong. Okay, so it is coming in the boundary, you can say. So we can accept that, but it's not a very good structure. And in the Rampage analysis, you can see the percentage, which are very important. That 69% of the residue comes in the favored region, whereas around 20% residue come in the allowed region. So you have to have a total of favored and allowed region. If it is crossing 90%, then it's a good structure. Okay, but if the outlier region that cross the more than 10%, then that is not a good structure. You have to work out. Here you can say this is almost 90%, but not crossing the 90%. That's why I am repeatedly telling that this is not a good structure. But if you were doing the structure regularly, you can easily identify by the picture also. In the picture, you can see there are lots of alpha helix and beta helix are there, but there are lots of coiled portion which the software could not predict whether there is any secondary structure or not. Okay. So this is similar for GC modeling. Now coming with the interaction. So as I said, for interaction, you should have two proteins. So now we have the GBNB glycoprotein, which seem to interact with the Thrips-Pami or insect vector protein. So based on some study, we selected some insect protein which probably interacting with the groundnut virus glycoproteins. So now is the homology modeling. So first we tried with homology modeling, and we found there are similar type of proteins available in the PDB database. So we need not to go for ab initio modeling in case of Thrips-Pami protein. So this is the software we used, that is the modeler. Okay. So the limitation or difficulties of this handling this software, this is a DOS language based. Okay. So every time you have to put command, and you have to know the command for what function or for what structure you have to put what. Okay. So that is the limitation of this software. But based on this homology modeling, we could generate different structure of TIPS-PAMI protein. This is the structure of TIPAMI AP2, adapter protein 2. And here you can see the protein is lying in the allowed region, 89% plus 7.5%, that is more than 90%. So we can consider this structure is very good and stable structure. Similarly, we generated different types of protein of TIPS-PAMI. This is cathepsin B, then cathepsin L, clathrin, then enolase, V-ATPase or bacular ATPase E subunit. Yeah, now comes to the docking. Now we have two structure of the protein from two different organisms. One is the glycoprotein and another is the TIPS-PAMI protein. So first we went for the patch dock. So that is the docking software we are using. So in the patch dock software, what you have to do? You have to choose your file. So first is the receptor molecule and second is the ligand molecule. So it can be two protein or it can be protein to ligand. So this software can generate protein ligand and protein docking both. Okay. After doing the patch dock, it needs some refinement. So for the refinement, we are using another web server, that is the FireDock. So in the FireDock, again you have to choose the transformation file. Already whatever output of the patch dock you have received, you have to load this FireDock, and this FireDock will give you an output with a refined docking between the two proteins. So they will provide top 10 refinements and they will provide a global score, and based on this global score we used a normalized Z score. So this is the formula of the Z score. If you are doing, you have to normalize them, and this is the global score of the each protein interacting with GN, this one, and interacting with the GC. And based on that global score, we use the Z score formula and normalize the global score factor. Okay. Based on this normalized value, you can choose. There may be some interaction, more or less there in the prediction model, you will get 1, 2, 3 interaction you will get, but you have to always go for the best interaction protein or interactive protein. So for that you have to do the Z score analysis, and based on the Z score you can select the top 5 or top 3. Here we selected top 3 for GN and top 3 for GC. Okay. Now after the having the top 3 interacting protein between GBNB and TIPS-PAMI, there is another software, is the ZDock server based software. So here you can again put your both the protein here, input file and input file 2, and this top 3 protein complex both for GN and GC and submitted to ZDock, and this will give you the final version of the interaction. Okay. So ZDock server basically gives you the interfaces, sites, how strong is the interaction. So now after doing the ZDock, we did another analysis, that is the how is the interaction, how far are they from each other, how many interactions are there. For this type of analysis you can go for PDB ePISA. So that is a server supported by PDB. So in the PISA query you can see here the PDB entry. If you have doing a protein with structure available in the PDB, then you can directly put the file name here, or if you have your structure is also generated by your computer prediction, you have to load the structure by coordinate files. Okay. When you are giving the coordinate files, after that you have to give the interfaces. You have to click on the interfaces, that will give you the gives free energy value, delta G p value, delta G probability, and interfaces like NHB means hydrogen bond, SB means sulfide bond, and DS means salt bridges. Okay. So 3 type of interfaces you will get from PDB ePISA. So for example, I can show you that this is the interaction between uh, GN and cathepsin L, and you can see this interaction is supported by 12 hydrogen bonds, and this is the position of the hydrogen bond of cathepsin L position is this one, and this is the GN position, and there are two salt bridges that forms the interaction between cathepsin and GN. Okay. And what is this gives free energy? The less free energy is there, that is the more stable of your interaction. If there is a more free energy, that means your interaction is not much stable. And what is delta Gp? P is the probability. So if there is a less, this score is very fine because you can see 0.071. So that's a low delta Gp value. If low delta Gp value signifies predicting or getting another best interaction, the probability is very less. So that means the interaction you are getting, that is the best probable interaction. So by that way, we predicted interaction of defined site, and using the PDB EPSI you can show the bondage and what are the distance between these residues and the interaction of salt bridge or hydrogen bond. What is the distance between these two molecules you can show in the PDB EPSI. So I'm not taking much time. So by that way we predicted different types of interaction, and gradually we can predict the interaction between GBNB and GC, GBNB, GNGC and the Thipswami protein. Okay. So based on that, you can predict that C-type lectin, which are present interacting here, is the first receptor of the GBNB, and after C-type lectin is getting, then the GN helps in the internalization, and the GC, which has the transmembrane, several transmembrane domain, that helps in the transmembrane fusion through a clathrin and V-ATPase mutate, that is called CME. So this is basically a prediction model, and this prediction, this type of model you can use where you don't have the X-ray crystallography facility or NMR facility, or you have this facility but isolating the protein or purifying the protein is very difficult. Okay. Basically for the virus protein, like for begomovirus protein, coat protein, which is interacting with the insect protein, that is very difficult to purify. Okay. So several people are working, but till date no purified or NMR or X-ray crystallographic structure are available. For Bunia virus protein also very difficult for purify. So for this type of work you can overcome the limitation of NMR or X-ray crystallography by computational prediction. But how efficient is your computational prediction, that belongs to you and the software you are using. So you have to analyze, you have to click your bend to find out the structure stability, what are the free energy, what is the potential bond between these molecules, that you have to always think about. Okay. But when you are working in a scratch position, when no information or no background is available, this type of computational analysis is very much useful. Okay. So I understand this is basically a complex one and very difficult to cover it in a theory class. So I tried to my best to put some snapshot of the server screen and the softwares so that you can understand it in a better way. But when you are, if you are interested to do this type of computational analysis, whenever you are working, you will get defined challenges in running the softwares and in understanding the output also. But if you are using, gradually you will understand which one you have to take and which one you have not to take. Okay. So thank you for listening.
Short time you prepared a presentation because it was not included in the training program. As some trainees they are interested to have this lecture, so I requested Dr. Milendu and he agreed and he delivered a nice talk on this particular topic. Just I want to give you a little love from our side to you.
Oh, thank you.
He's sitting in biology section, so if you have any other doubt, you can go and research.
If you have any question or if you want to learn how to run the softwares and you want to have some free software available with me, so you can meet me anytime. Okay.